of things you can bet on right now, maybe not legally yet, but things you can bet on right now are who's going to be the next Saints head coach, Mario. Odds are abound all over from that. And when you look at these right here from Sportsline, the three names at the top really should not surprise anybody. Of course, you probably guessed the betting favorite is Dennis Allen, current Saints defensive coordinator. He filled in for Sean Payton when he had COVID earlier this year against Tampa Bay. He's filled in for Sean Payton in the past as well. He is your betting favorite at even. Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions right now, is next at plus 300. Pete Carmichael, the Saints' current offensive coordinator, is next at plus 500. And then there's Doug Peterson, who's popped up in every single head coaching odds that we've gone through on this show. But what the three names right there have in common are they're all from the Sean Payton coaching tree.
That's right. And you would think that they're going to go with Dennis Allen, who's at even money in this particular list. More on that in a moment. But we do have to recall that they already scheduled interviews with both Dennis Allen and Aaron Glenn, who's right here after him in these odds. And you got to remember the Saints had to fill a certain quota. They had to interview a certain amount of candidates. Some of them had to be minorities to satisfy the Rooney Rule. And you had to kind of get the ball rolling here. So you will see the Saints interviewing certain names, some of them likely on this list. But if you're going to ask me what I think they're probably just going to stay with Dennis Allen. I think the smart thing to do, Musso, would be to give Dennis Allen maybe like a 2 or 3 year deal. See if you can keep the ball rolling with the continuity that you have right now with Dennis Allen, with this defense, and consider that he's already been a head coach. Yes, it did not go well in his first stint with the Raiders, record of 8-28, but he's now spent 4 years as a defensive coordinator. He only spent 1 year as a DC with the Broncos before making the jump to be a head coach with Oakland. So I think he's ready for the job, and I think it's a little too fresh right now to do like a full-on rebuild. I don't think the Saints would benefit from pressing the reset button so dramatically right off the bat, right after Sean Payton decides to step away.
Well, and I don't think that's really the direction you go anyway. I'm kind of with you about the continuing on what you've built. How many times yesterday in that we'll call it a farewell press conference, Sean Payton himself said doesn't like the word retirement. So in his farewell press conference yesterday, how many times did Sean Payton mention culture and the foundation and what they've built there?
Alignment.
Alignment. He actually did say alignment one time. And when he did that, if Brian Kelly was anywhere near radio or TV watching it, he was the gift from Wolf of Wall Street of pointing whenever he said it. But when he mentioned that a lot. And obviously, of course, you want to keep that going. My thing with it is, though, and I kind of said this yesterday, I definitely think there's merit to that. I don't know if it's just going to be as easy, though, as, okay, you put Dennis Allen or Pete Carmichael or something like that right in place and you just continue rolling. Because while, yes, those guys have worked hand in hand with Sean Payton, yes, they've been in the building and they've been a big part of building that culture, Sean Payton is the glue that really kind of held all that together. And you still are removing that. One thing I want to see the Saints do, and I think they're in the position to do, is they don't need to hire a first-time head coach. You're past that because of what Sean Payton, Dennis Allen, Mickey Loomis, all these guys, Jeff Ireland, Dennis Lausch, Gail Benson, what they've all built there. It's made this an extremely, extremely attractive job. And it's not to say that, man, if you go hire an Aaron Glenn, or I use him as an example because he's from the Sean Payton tree, but he's never been a head coach. Say you go hire, it's not to say he won't come in here and have success, and he can continue on what you've done. But even Dennis Allen at 8-28 as a head coach, he's got success. He's got experience there, and I think that's something the Saints need as well. You want someone to continue it on, but because of that, I think you're in a position maybe more than any of the other head coach openings in the NFL to not have to hire a first-time head coach.
For sure. The job's still attractive for a lot of reasons, and we laid some of them out yesterday, and there's still a lot of questions to answer here. There might be some attrition on the roster with Sean Payton leaving. I'm not going to take the fact that there's not for granted, and you still have a very stable ownership, front office. I think you're going to have a strong defense. I think if Dennis Allen stays, they're going to want to keep riding this wave, and you're going to bring mostly everybody back, and some older players that are still very impactful, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, that have a really good rapport with Dennis Allen. And I don't think there's a candidate out there right now that's really worth the risk of doing a full rebuild. Like, I have respect for Doug Peterson. I think Eric Bieniemy is maybe the best play caller in the NFL, and Andy Reid did admit that he calls the plays after the AFC Championship game. But I don't know if right now it's really worth the risk, like you're saying, bringing in a first-time head coach. And the expectations aren't going to be the same. We're going to talk about win totals on this show. And depending what happens at quarterback and with the roster, it might be a lot lower with the Dennis Allen, Pete Carmichael, whoever led Saints. But again, that's why I think you do this. It's a little more low risk if you stay with Dennis Allen, and down the road, if you deem that it's not the appropriate decision, if they're not doing too well at first, then you could blow it up. Then you could see who the hot candidates are, and then you could push the reset button. But right now, I could see why Dennis Allen is even money to be the next Saints head coach. I think it's the most plausible move for New Orleans to make.
It's been the name that's just been talked about a lot. He had another interview scheduled with the Chicago Bears for yesterday, canceled it obviously so he could be there for Sean Payton. But I mean, look, cancels that one now. Schedules one with the New Orleans Saints. It's always been. Look, think about it. Ryan Nielsen's technically the associate head coach or assistant head coach. I don't remember the exact term the Saints used for it, but that's his role. When they needed someone to fill in for Sean Payton, it was Dennis Allen. Sean Payton yesterday in his press conference, he was asked. I think it was Mike Triplett that asked the question. I can't remember, but was asked, "Is there a shot that if/when you get that itch to coach again, do you return to New Orleans?" And Sean said, "I don't think it's fair to whoever gets the job, but Dennis Allen, who's a great candidate in the building." Like it was DA who he mentioned. So, yeah, makes all the sense in the world that he's even money to be the next guy. And look, if I had to make a pick today, life depends on it today. I'm picking Dennis Allen as well. And I think there is a lot to be excited about there. He's a guy who's passed on some opportunities, and sometimes guys are just looking for the right one. They're waiting for that right opportunity, and maybe this is that one for Dennis Allen.
And he's still relatively young, Musso. He's only 49 years old, which means when he was coaching the Raiders 10 years ago, he was about 40 years old, under 40 possibly at 39 when he first started. So I think he's really grown significantly, not just because he's been working under Sean Payton, who he's been working under for a long time, was also on staff when the Saints won the Super Bowl before he made those other stops in his career. But I think there's a lot to be said for Dennis Allen now spending 4 years as a DC. Again, had a lot of success with Denver in 2011, but he made that jump as a 40-year-old after only having 1 year of experience as a coordinator. Now he has 4 years of experience as a coordinator with one of the best head coaches in NFL history, somebody who was considered an elite head coach until he stepped down yesterday. So I think he's a lot more ready for the job. I don't think it's really fair to label Dennis Allen like a failed head coach or like a recycled head coach. I think he's grown a lot. I think he's almost a new head coach compared to what he was in 2012 with Oakland.
Absolutely. And then, I mean, just for a laugh here, Mario, before we hit our break, for what it's worth, who has the longest odds, according to Sportsline, is Drew Brees at plus 2,500. And, yeah, no. I mean, head coach Drew Brees,
Hey man, I told you before the show. Josh McCown made it far enough to at least get an interview. Drew Brees, being who he is, you never know. Different sport. Steve Nash, no experience, head coaching job right off the bat. One of the best point guards of all time, just like Drew Brees is one of the best quarterbacks of all time. So never say never. Plus 2,500.
I'm saying never. At least right now. Like for this head coaching go round, I'm saying never. Could Drew Brees one day be a coach in the NFL? Sure. I mean, I could absolutely see that. But right now, I think Drew sticks to the flag football, to coaching the flag football.
The fan base would be cool with it.